Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Carl Experience Season 3 episode. Well, who gives a damn at this point? It's just fun to make these. And it is time consuming as well. Okay. This episode is entitled The Foster Care System. And there will be some vitriol spewed. There will be some well-earned criticism done. And there probably will be an interview or two by faces you're all familiar with, because there are that many people I know that have been in the system. Now, let's start off with a brief history lesson. 1636. You're probably wondering what that means. Is it 1,636 kids missing in Kansas? No, it's not. 1636 is when 7-year-old Benjamin Eaton became the United States' first foster child. Yes, you heard that correct. In 1636, he was the first foster child in the United States. Mind you, it was before the United States were united, let alone states. But yeah, this person, and I couldn't find very much information out on this Benjamin Eaton. I did try. I spent 2 hours looking for the information, couldn't find a damn bit of it, and I'm not about to pay for a life history on somebody who lived well over 400 years ago. Okay, next up, a little more history. In 1853, Charles Loring Brace began the free foster home movement. Brace was a Calvinist. I haven't looked into what that is yet, but there are not too many of those left anyway. And a staunch anti-Catholic. So much so that he considered poor Catholic immigrants to be genetically inferior. Of the estimated 34,000 homeless children in New York, of the estimated 34,000 homeless children in New York in 1854, most of them were assumed to be Catholic. Many children deemed orphans were not, and when families of origin tried to keep their children, they were turned away. This means that kids would be ripped away from their families, and the actual family would come and claim them, and they were told, nope, ain't happening. It's disturbing that behavior still continues going on. Many children deemed orphan. Okay, I got past that one. Before, during, and after his time, orphan asylums and almshouses were available for poor and homeless children. As a sign of those bygone days, the children usually had to meet certain standards of the foster home, such as eye and hair color, because of the high incidence of racism in rural areas. Basically, they were going out to the frontier and small farming communities and promoting those the children which met. They weren't going to get like some black child to be with like a white Amish set of people back then. We are talking the mid 1800s. It wasn't very common. These practices, as thoroughly racist as they were, led to only healthy, attractive children with strong Anglo-American features having the best placements or the most preferred. If you looked Anglo-American, or what we'd call normal white, I guess now, those people were put in the best situations and adopted quickly. The ones who weren't, didn't. But that should go without saying just by me having said that. These placements were mostly in rurally situated areas and were heavily racist against different ethnicities. Placements were considered more healthy, and these placements were considered more healthy and morally upright than their city counterparts. That's saying, well, they live in the frontier country, far up. So, because they go to church and do all this crap, they are more morally fibrous. No. But anyway, some placements were more indentured servitude, some of or child slavery until said child was 21. Yes, they actually did adopt servitude adoptions, where there are recorded incidences where a 4-year-old will go to a home and have to sign a paper even though he's legally there, he or she isn't legally able to, and signs an indentured contract. This kid belongs to you now. You have to feed it, clothe it, all this other crap. Work it to death. You work it as much as you want. It's your kid now. And as of them turning 21, then they're free. But up until that point, they're indentured servants. Yes, it was actually a thing. Since this was a precursor to our current system, the workers were overloaded and spread thin. Sometimes as many as 30 children per worker. It could go as high as 50, but that was really stretching it. I mean, that was like unbelievably stretched out thin. I read a couple of accounts of that. This also led to placements in abusive and toxic homes. His placement programs allowed some 200,000 children to travel west by rail in search of new homes during the life of these programs. These programs were dubbed orphan trains because they were taking trains back then. The program was deemed a success with 87% of children sent to county homes had done well. 8% had returned to New York, and 5% had died, disappeared, or gotten arrested. It should be noted that Brace was an abolitionist. His programs ended in 1929, 75 years after it started as an experiment. Now here's an alarming fact for you, or an interesting one. From August 1999, didn't expect to sneeze right then. From August 1999 to August of 2019, that's 20 years. 9,073,607 American children have been removed from their families and placed in foster care. As of August 2019, 437,238 children in the U.S. were removed from their families and placed into foster care. In 20 years, there have been just over 9 million children put into foster care. That's an alarming number. Here are some more groovy statistics. 24% of foster children are between the ages of 0 and 2. Newborn babies and infants. 18% of foster children are 3 to 5 years old. 28% of foster children are 6 to 12 years old. 40% of foster children are 13 to 21. Average numbers of birthday a child spends in foster care, 2. I don't think that's right. I think most of them go for a lot longer than that. I've seen other cases that I'm not involved with last 5-6 years. 22% of children had 3 or more placements during a length of 20 months in foster care. And the one that's stupid, 91% of foster children under the age of 2 are adopted. Now, with that history lesson being smudged out of the way, I'm going to take a little time to go over my own experience. Yes, I was in the foster care system. And my experiences in the foster care system, excuse me. My experience in the foster care system was that The workers were trying to be nice, even though they really didn't pay attention to you. The homes that you were sent to, way back in the 80s, mind you, they might be good every other way, but they weren't very unabusive. So hold on a second. I had to check something outside real fast. Okay. I was sent to a couple of different foster homes where the children of said parents were psychologically and physically abusive. I overcame that because I was resilient and bounced back. I was just that kind of kid. I was at least, one foster home, in one foster home, which was to an elderly couple. Me and my older sister were there. And the boy that they had there was slightly older than my sister, and he was, according to what I understand, he was hitting puberty or some crap, and I know that she was asked to touch him, and she did so. She may not recall that, but I do. I know I happened to walk in on them doing said things behind a shed in the yard. What else they might have done, I don't know. That's her story to bear, not mine. I was in another foster home, really close to where my parents lived. Like, literally, I could have walked there as a 5 or 6 year old and made it all the way back to where my parents lived. That house was, the mother and all the adults were okay, but all the kids, all the children around there, brutal fuckers. They were, at one point, the two boys that lived in the house pinned me down on my bed, ripped my shirt towards my head, exposing my back, pulled my pants down to my ankles, proceeded to lick their palms and smack the shit out of me. This happened for well over 2 hours while their mother was out doing God knows what. She left to go do something real quick, and she was gone for like 30 minutes, and all I remember thinking is, let this shit end. I put up the entire time, up until she pulled in and opened the door, they were just busy licking their hand and smacking the shit out of me as hard as they could. Did I report it? No, because I didn't know what was normal outside in my family that I grew up with, my biological family. We fought, but we didn't torture. And these kids seem to feel the need to torture other people. That's like, well, we aren't enough for mom. Mom has to get another kid to come into the house. That way she can feel, I guess that's the only thing I can think of. But I was slapped as hard as I could swing, with them licking their hands, which hurt even more, for, I want to say 30 to 45, maybe even an hour. After a while, you just blur out. And they decided to check my body every day to see if they had left marks. And after like a week, when my body finally healed up, then they started coming up and kicking me behind the knees, all sorts of abuse. And then at one point, one of the boys was running through the house, said a swear word you're not supposed to say in that particular household, and apparently one of the very old cousins, we're talking like somebody who was 25, went out to punch the kid, and because I was chasing him, he'd stolen something from me. I ended up running straight into the cousin's hand as he was swinging. That kid, no less, got his ass busted by his mom, and I was tended to, because the cousin didn't know he'd hit me that hard. I don't remember much of it. I remember running through the house and then running into a fist from somebody who's back then was like a mountain tall to me, and then waking. Then apparently I came to watching Jefferson Airplane singing "Everyone Needs Somebody to Love." And yeah, then I was sent. I can't remember exactly how many foster homes I was into. I think it was 3 or 4, but the last foster home I was in was with a pastor and his wife. They ran their own church, and my God, it was nice living somewhere where you weren't tortured every day, and you weren't tested every day. I'm sure I tested them. I was a kid. It was the 80s. They had an adopted son who was 18, finishing up high school, special needs. He's probably like somewhere about his early 50s by now. But yeah, that was out in Goddard. I still know that I can still go directly to the house because I know where the house is. And I didn't have too bad of a time. I think I was there for almost 2 years. I got to plant a tree out there. I think they cut the tree down. I'm not sure. But yeah, the only thing I really didn't like about them, other than going to church every goddamn Sunday, was the fact that even if I swore a little bit, I could say "dang" and I got my face slapped. I said, "Oh, that's bull," one point, and she slapped me across the face. Mind you, these are 60-year-old people. That's also back when I got my feet crushed by a cement truck. That's probably why my feet are so small. I'm not sure, but that's just speculative. But yeah, then once I got out and I became an adult, and then watched my sister have to deal with DCCCA, I think it is, DECA as it's called here, and Youthville. There are some issues. There are some issues in there. My sister wasn't being the best mother at the time, whether she wants to admit it or not. She wasn't being the best mother, and I certainly wasn't being a good caretaker. If I was left alone with a child, with a baby or an infant, I was at best barely able to change a diaper, making its bottle all that other crap. No idea how to do it. Hadn't been taught. I was raised to be fit, be good, and try to be somewhat good at sports, and then to go in the military once I hit 18. That clearly did not happen. I was raised by a Marine to be a Marine and do that whole rigmarole stuff. But my sister wasn't the best mother, but then again, I don't think she was in the right mindset at the time. And if she's watching this, I'm not banging you. I'm simply stating a fact. That not everybody's the best mother when they first start out, and you started out at 17. You shouldn't have been married, but that's on our father, not on you. You were eager to grow up. I get that, and I don't know what her experiences were in foster care, nor do I know what my brothers and sisters. Nor do I know what my brother and sisters' experiences were. My 2 sisters had very different experiences. My brother went from being normal to being found face first in a pool, and nobody knew how long he'd been there. They guessed 45 minutes. So my little brother is unnaturally dumb. And yes, there is a difference between naturally dumb and unnaturally dumb. Circumstances forced him to be, ended up making him mildly retarded. He doesn't have an extra gene or any of that other shit. But I don't know what abuses they went through, and I don't pretend to know what abuses they went through. All I can speak to is my experience and the lens in which I look. Now, my sister, as far as her older children go, she probably wasn't the best mother ever, but she also wasn't the worst. I saw far more abusive women become mothers and keep their children. The problem is her first husband kind of screwed up everything, because her first husband ended up breaking his own daughter's leg twice before she was 6 months old, And when they finally caught it, when the doctors finally caught it, they took her oldest into custody, and her first husband tried to blame me. Said I broke the child's leg, which I was going to school full time, and I was also working 80 hours a week. I didn't have time to do any of this crap they said I was doing. So it is endemic and awesome, the power that we're supposed to have. But I also want to emphasize, because I went through this, my own experiences with the system. My first foster home was a kinship placement with my grandma, and that was back when I was 6. It was right, God, going back that far is hard to remember. Yeah, it's been decades. But yeah, needless to say, I was with my grandmother because she was my first placement. Then I got moved into an actual foster home. We actually were at the Wichita Children's Home that's located just north of Wesley Hospital. And the toys that we had, because we didn't throw anything away, we filled up the entire toy room in the Wichita Children's Home. They had like 2-3 toys. Just us 4 alone, because Dad apparently thought we needed toys and not anything else. Our toys filled up the entire toy room. And when we left, we each got to leave with 2 toys. We filled the entire fucking toy room. And yet we were only allowed to leave with 2 toys. We weren't allowed to leave with our own toys. I took with me a big, large stuffed teddy bear. But as far as being a parent, my mother almost cost me my oldest daughter to begin with. Apparently she'd been intercepting mail from the farm, which is, or was, Marion County SRS DCF. They've been trying to contact me for well over a year. She finally opened one of the letters, because she thought the letters were for my dad. She finally opened up one of the letters and found out that if I didn't show up to this such court date, that I would be stripped of my parental rights, and yada yada yada. Because my mom was so guilty over almost having cost me one child that I didn't even know existed. She took me to the court date. We made an appearance, and I had to flat out I told my attorney that I wanted to speak to the judge, and I stood up at the first meeting as a judge. My mom's been throwing these letters out for a year. We didn't know what it was about. We thought it was from my dad. I'm here now, and that's the end of the story. I'm here now. I didn't know anything, and I want a DNA test done. Because my daughter wasn't there. Let's see, the first one, I came up, and my daughter was wailing. You could hear her outside the courtroom in Marion County, and I was told to go in to talk with the judge, which was my attorney and the prosecuting attorney or whatever. Went up there and had my say, and the judge was like, okay, we're ordering this, and this, and after we get these first 3 things done, you'll be okay. I had to go get a follicle test done. I had to cut my hair. I had to go to Kelly Compliance over on West Street, which is clear across town from where I lived. I had to go up there, get it done 2 days before my new visitation. I also had to establish paternity, which I pushed for. And DCF loved me because they were located downtown. I went up to the 2nd story, or whatever story it was. They said normally men who come up here come up in handcuffs, and I was coming in willingly and pushing for my own paternity test on my daughter. I'm like, I'm here to get it done and over with. I want to know one way or the other. This kid's mine. And then I got responsibilities and duties to take care of, and I did such. They loved it. They pushed. Normally, if the more pissy you are, the more they tend to move your. They'll put it on top of them when they're not looking. They'll shove it to the bottom. They actually told me that. And you're looking, what, 16 some odd years ago or so? Yeah, put you on top while you're looking, and when you're not looking, whoop, bottom of the pile. You want to be an asshole? You can wait. They said that if I'd been brought in handcuffs, they would have put me somewhere in the middle. Because I came in on my own, they would make sure that mine was the first one put through. Which I really should thank those ladies, but that's been so long ago, I don't even remember what the ladies looked like. But I'm sure they'll never forget me. Because they said they hadn't seen any guy walk in without being in handcuffs or under order of the court in over 2 years. Literally. They had... every guy who'd come in there came in there with an officer. I came in of my own free will, no officers, nothing. So yeah, they were quite happy with me. Then, fast forward many, many, many years later, I have my oldest and have her little blue book. And I'm going through it, and all I can think of is... Oh, sorry, dropped the lid. All I can think to myself is, holy fuck. I only knew, when she was growing up, I was her advocate. She's my daughter, hello. But yeah, I was her advocate for all of her childhood. Sorry, the light quality is weird, but I've got the blinds not open, but they're lit up because of the sun. And then you got this light back here, which I guess gives it a two-tone quality. I could probably turn that off, but... Me and the older two girls that I raised, one who's my biological daughter, the other one was pretty much an adoptive stepdaughter, I guess you'd call it. Half-sister to my daughter. I helped raise both of them, and they were raised by their grandmother and their maternal grandmother, who was a head case in herself. She made a lot of claims which I don't believe were true. But then again, I wasn't there. I'm not gonna flat out say she was lying. But I don't believe that her abuses were truthful at all. Not one little bit. I think she was jealous of attention paid to all the other children. But that same attention was not paid to her. And as an aside to that, because she learned to eat her grief and her feelings, it still does to this day. She's in her 60s and still gobbles candy like it's fucking no problem. She goes through an entire bag of candy like it's nothing. I've heard that she's improved, but since I haven't seen it, I can't attribute to it. But she passed that same line. She passed all these unhealthy and toxic things onto her daughter, baby mama. And she had my oldest's mother had severe issues because of her mother's inability to move past her own issues and provide for her child. Nicole spent a better part of most of her childhood in state's custody because her mother was incapable, according to the paperwork, of moving on. She was incapable of keeping a clean house. There's a shitload of nasty things in the file that I read, and her Nicole's mother, my kid's grandmother, was notoriously unclean, and she still managed to have 3 daughters. Not sure how the hell she managed that one, But she created a toxic cycle, and that cycle continued from the mother to Nicole. And then Nicole died way back in '05. And then there was Vanessa who adopted the oldest, which at the time was my best option. And yes, I spent 3 months thinking about whether or not to sign my rights away or not. The state had already told me that I was going to lose the case. Straight out, there was no way in hell I was going to win. I was working 11 and 12-hour days at McDonald's, clear across town from where I lived. Because of the commute, which was an hour and a half each way by bike. I was living at basically Mount Vernon and McLean, even though there is no Mount Vernon over there. That's closest to where I live to, but I was living basically, well, maybe Harry and McLean. I was in the middle, but from there all the way to 21st and Mays, every single day I had to work. And some days I just came in to unload the truck. Like an hour and a half. Like an hour and a half in sweltering heat to unload a truck for an hour and a half. And then, hour and a half. So I'm essentially taking a 3-hour bike ride to work an hour and a half and then come back home for the rest of the day. So I'm gone, let's see, hour and a half, that's what, 5 hours being gone or some crap like that? 5 hours. I mean, at that point, they could have just put me down for like a half shift of 5 hours and I'd have had a full day. But no, I had to leave to be there by the time truck got there, unload the truck, then go all the way back home by bike. But anyway, since the kids have gotten older and I've learned from nieces and like on my podcast with Josie's story, oh my God. And I could literally not write a horror story that fucked up. I heard about her upbringing, how her foster parents went about it, if you want to even call them that. I wouldn't call them fostering anything. I call them destructive parents. But what she went through was the stuff of horror films. Like, literally only psychologically fucked up storytellers can ever tell a story that even comes close to hers, let alone surpassing it. And yes, there are a couple movies who go with so much surrealism and a gotcha moment at the end that they're pretty much stuff nobody would do. Not only did Josie live through this stuff, she endured it, and she's still alive. And she's still a positive person. It says a lot. My daughter has been through some very emotionally disturbed crap, and due to quite a few of the people she grew up around or with, some of that's my fault. I get it. I accept it. I accept responsibility for having fucked up people around her, but I can't go back and take that back. All I can do is accept responsibility and move on. I wish they weren't as fucked up as they turned out being, but what are you going to do there? But my daughter went through my daughter was psychologically manipulated, emotionally and psychologically tortured, and at one point got physically abused. Well, more than once. And the whole litany list. And most of my problem as of late has been trying to figure out why I've run into several caseworkers, and they're like, well, we're just overworked. Okay, what were you hoping for? Well, I wish parents would stop doing drugs. I'll buy that for the $5 it's worth, because it's actually a fact. More than half of all children put into foster care in the past 5 years, and I'm not kidding. Half of them are drug addicts who refuse to lay off doing crack, meth, fentanyl, whatever it is. They want to be fucking high. The other half are abusive homes, with a very small percentage thereafter of the parent dying, and none of the rest of the family can take care of them because they're either too self-important, or they're too busy, or they're gone too. But there are several families that I've seen in counseling when I was going to church, where the church would have to expand, and they have to go to a different room, because the original room we were going when we went to parenting classes for my youngest, right after we finished the class, I had to move the class down to the kitchen, and then apparently they moved from there to the chapel, or the sanctuary. The class got that big. Desperate people trying everything they could to get the pastor to give them a good word, or whatever. But I've noticed that quite a few women would be in highly abusive relationships, and they usually were the ones who talked about their relationships the least, is because they were abusive. Because they had to have their man candy around, the guy with the big rippling muscles, and who looked kind of cool to everybody else. That's the cool pretty boy asshole. He looks good, gonna treat you like shit. That's how that goes. But yeah, a lot of women with bad taste in men, yada yada yada. You can go on forever, but the workers, like our old worker, I think her name was Megan or some shit. She got too personally involved with my youngest. She was doing at-home visitations with her, and she finally got to the point where she was telling us how to treat my daughters. Like, okay, so we called up her supervisor after one of these said visits, and it's like, why is my daughter going to Megan more than she's coming to me? Is she really? And then come to find out, Megan was investing emotionally too much into my child. She was spending a lot of time with her when she didn't need to. She was supposed to be bonding with me and my wife, not herself. And so we eventually had to cut her out, and we started having other workers, because other workers weren't trying to transfer. They weren't trying to commit transference. And this chick Megan was trying to commit transference, which is bad. So we had to stop that, because like, no, if my daughter's coming to you because you spend more time with her than I get to legally, then fuck you and fuck off. But a lot of workers will tell you that they're being overworked. Well, when you can get the cops to bust drug rings, then we might be able to condemn them. Like, they just did a raid over on Broadway, and they stopped like 2 trafficking rings and a couple different drug busts. And now, I went by South Kellogg a few days ago with my wife. We were going somewhere, and we literally saw hookers outside of the fences of several hotels. They're literally trying to prostitute or hook right out there in the open, because the hotels they were operating in shut down. Me personally, I've been like, okay, this pimp, has he got a lot of money? Yeah, he's got this. Okay, make it 3 times that much. Bang the gavel, dead. But women, a lot of women seem to suffer from substance abuse issues. I don't know why. Maybe it's to compensate for the Prince Charming they thought they should get but never got. I don't know. I'm not trying to pretend that I do know. What I do know for a fact is that our system of foster care needs to be torn down completely. Remove all of the all the Bible thumpers from hell. But, well, you need to live by this rule. If I don't go to church, you have no right to tell me what the hell to do. You have no right to quote biblical scripture to me about what God wants and what God doesn't want. If God wanted the child dead, he'd let the child drown or asphyxiate or choke or burn or drown. And miscarriages happen all the time. So yeah, don't quote to me that God wants this. You don't know the will of God. If you did, you wouldn't be alive. At least not on our plane. You'd be an angel. Now, I'm not discounting anybody who is considered a real-life angel, but let's get past this thing. Well, the church needs to help. The church can help. I don't doubt that. But prepping people by bringing them to your religious beliefs just so they can have their children back is nonsense. It's utter bullshit. Now, for those of you who are religious, remember, I'm not just flinging shit to hear myself think. But the system needs work, and it needs a massive amount of it. We need better workers who know how to read body language. I mean, there's been times where I went to court, like termination court, which is held in juvenile court on Fridays or Thursdays, and instantly walking in and seeing the parents communicate with their children. You can tell who is a parent. You can tell who wants their kids and who's just, well, they're there to look cool and look like they're hot to trot, and then when they get in, they sign their rights away because they don't want the kid. Because they want their new young hot girlfriend to have their babies. They don't care about this other one. If you don't want that baby, don't spread her legs and bust a nut. I think the biggest issue is workers who are transitioning from one thing to another. Like one of our best workers was this guy named Corey. He was a construction guy. He told him he was going to leave to go back to his old job in construction. He would literally, after like 2 visits, he'd just sit and do all his paperwork. Hey, you guys care if I work on my computer, or do I need to supervise you? Dude, if you got work to do, do it. We don't care. We're going to be here with her in a moment. That's what our job was at that time. So he'd spend the entire hour clicking away, getting everything done. He said he got like 30 damn emails sent while we were busy spending time with my youngest in the visits. And then when he announced he was leaving, they tripled his workload. He had 30 kids to work on. They made that, and they turned that into, I think they ended up turning that into like 90 cases. After like 3 days of that crap, he left. He went from like 20 or 30 kids to 90. Yeah, I'd wash my hands of it too. If he says he's leaving, he tripled his workload. Fuck it, I'm done. Bye. Not worth the time. He's getting paid better money than he was getting paid. He moved on to be a foreman at another company and all this crap. So I don't blame him. You're not getting paid more to get more cases done. You're still going to get paid a flat rate to do even more children. And quite frankly, I think that I think that some of the workers in there don't actually pay attention to the proper things that they should. And they can make the case of being overworked to death all they want. But when you go to termination court and you see maybe 3 fucking workers show up, maybe 3 workers show up, 3, and you see dozens of family support workers there trying to figure out what's going on with the kids, keep the kids in line. Because some of these people have a fuckload of kids. I seen one. Me and my wife literally saw one lady show up with 12 children. She had to get DCF or St. Francis to schedule her a van to transport all of her children, and all of her children were 12 on down to newborn. I mean, literally. And she came to court with a newborn, and she was already pregnant again. And the family support worker is like, why are you pregnant again? He came by and I couldn't help myself. That was like 2 months ago. The family support worker's like, you're going to have to stop. You don't know when to stop. You're going to lose all of your children because you don't know when to close your legs. Apparently, she got told the same exact thing by the judge. The judge said she needed to be. The judge apparently cited some weird law, and that she was going to get fixed. No more children. Fuck that. You're done having babies. You've pooped out more than you need ever. And apparently, the father of all these children was in and out. He'd never spent more than 3 months out, and he apparently just came home, planted plowed seed into her, and then went straight back to prison or jail. So yeah, a bit of an idiotic situation there. I think we do need reform. I think we need to take most of the church crap out of the institution of adoption and social working or foster care system. I don't think it should be left so much to a church as it should be to people who understand other people. Because, yeah, there are certain people. Me and my wife used to sit there in juvie court and on termination day, because it's also the day you get your case reviewed, too. And we'd come up and we'd be up for review. We'd sit there all morning. We were usually the last fucking case on the docket, or damn near to it. And usually we're like, yeah, they're going to lose him, they're going to lose him, they're going to lose him. That person's going to get their kid. I don't know how, but they're going to get it. Usually we were dead on accurate. Dead on balls accurate. But I'm thinking of doing a couple of interviews based on the subject matter, based on how many views this gets, because I don't know how many views this is going to get. But we'll go in more into this with the interviews that I am more than likely to do. I've already got through 2 different other series of interviews left to do. And I hope to get those done too. But yeah, we need to fix the system. We need to fix the basis for them. And just like me, when I had to go through everything all over again with SRS, DCF, whatever you want to call it, they wanted me to get drug screened, follicle tested, psychological evaluation. The list was 3 pages long of the shit I needed to do to even see my daughter. And then when my wife was added to everything, and we started doing that, after about 3 months we went to court, and the judge was like, oh, you guys have tested positive, you guys have made every single visit, not missing a single one, no excuses, none of the... Okay, we're gonna drop this, and this. Literally went from 3 pages to like 1.5. And then, like, not even 6 months later, that was chopped in half, so we had like 6 things to do. Because we told the judge and the workers and our lawyer, we are boring. We're boring as toadstool shit, which toadstools don't shit, so you're waiting for that, you're waiting for the end of time. But I will get more into this subject on another podcast, maybe the next one, I don't know. But we'll find out how well this one goes, alright? Y'all keep it safe, and yeah, keep thinking. Yeah, apparently I wasn't running as short on time as I thought I was. I thought I was waiting on something. Apparently I was reading my watch wrong and being a retard. As far as the setup of the system goes, if a family was torn apart by drugs, I'd get the testing. If the household was split apart because of negligence, excessively dirty house, bruises, and the kid being in its child being in its own filth, they might not have drug issues, but you might want to test them first time just to see. But ultimately, For me, it's the parents who. And I'm not sure how many guys suffer from this when they fight the system, because there's not too many guys fighting for their kids. At least not here in the system, anyway. But a lot of mothers seem to have this need to be attached to the hip to their man. They seem to be unable to function without being with a guy. And just like there's also women who get with guys who are registered sex offenders. Yes, there are plenty of them here. Plenty of these women are so starved for attention and can't get a guy because they're out of they're in ill health. They don't exactly have their brain together. They're mildly retarded. They're massively overweight. God knows what else. There are women who want attention from a certain kind of man who is inaccessible to them because those men aren't attracted to those women. So women go after anybody who even slightly resembles that. Usually end up with assholes, but yeah, I was talking to the pastor during the parenting classes, and I'm like, why do women make such bad choices as far as their kids? And pastor says the only reason he could really give me, women want attention. They want men to pay. They want their hopeful man to pay attention to them. They want that storybook romance that may not be possible for them. They want, a lot of these women have grown up with this image. Well, I need to find that one guy. Okay, you want to find that one guy as soon as possible. Maybe you should just cool your jets and relax, enjoy the ride. If somebody's being violent or toxic or narcissistic, leave. But women seem to have this need to want to be, they want to have everything figured out and settled by the time they're 30. It doesn't always work that way. That's why when you see guys who are, 30 and 40 years old who are still trying to hit up the Playboy lifestyle, because, well, I'm single and ready to mingle and marriage is just the death of your sex life. No, that means being married means you're mature enough to move on to the next level. That means life isn't all just about sex, but women have a very ornately fucking gigantic role in the foster care system because most of the workers are women. Like here in town at our local St. Francis Center and DCF, most of the social workers and family support workers are women. They are female. And yet these fucked up, mentally deficient, psychologically incapable women are still pooping out kids and trying to keep their kids, but yet keep their abusive man. And at least in 3 different occasions, I have seen women lose their kids outright over having the boyfriends that they do. And my own worker, she was in 3 court cases in a row, had to come out because the judge is like he had to take a breather for like 5 minutes, where he did nothing, and where him and the everybody else in the room just sat there and breathed. And these are all members of the court. Everybody else filed out, all the attorneys, all that crap. If you weren't a member of the court, then you were gone. And apparently 3 different cases in a row, the women, the mothers argued because they had multiple kids. Well, I love him. I want to keep him. He can change. And according to the judge, these men had over a year to change. They didn't change at all. As a matter of fact, they didn't change for shit. These men became abusive to not only the women but the children because their daddy taught them that. If they're not the alpha male, then they ain't shit. Okay. And one of these women happened to be, she said she was like 47 and she had a 3-year-old, so she'd had a kid long past the point where she needed to. She had a full head of gray hair at this point. She said since that kid was born, her hair went straight gray. And this one child was her first child. She had literally didn't want. She'd been celibate, and then she felt the overwhelming need to have a baby. So she befriended this guy, got her to sleep with him, knocked her up. And then I got to see the guy. He made me fucking roll over on the. Me and my wife fell out of the chair laughing. The cops had to come and, are you okay? You shouldn't be laughing like that in court. This lady has a pear-shaped body. Thin on top, big in the middle, and then kind of tapers off. But you could tell she was no spring chicken by a long shot. I have no doubt she was trying to be a loving mother, but the guy she let knock her up was skinny, almost toothless, and at one point they had to handcuff his hands behind him, looping his arms through the back of the chair, that way he could not move. Because he said he didn't need to appear in no fucking court. He knocked her up, but he wasn't going to have anything to do with that goddamn baby or her. Well, he still got to appear in front of a judge. Plus that he had warrants for, apparently he did some things with children that he shouldn't have done. I'll leave that to your imagination. As sick and as disgusting as that sounds, it's probably a lot worse than I want to know about. But she was unaware of that at the time. He was being stripped of his rights. They were questioning her ability. And once she knew he wasn't going to be in the picture, apparently she was like, well, I still want to keep my kid, but I don't want to raise my kid without the father. Yeah, the judge is like, yeah, no. You either give up on him, or we're going to take your kid. Apparently, she argued to the point where they told her to go, that they would reconvene next week. And apparently that lady finally got it through her thick fucking skull to leave him alone and pursue getting her child back. And at her age, she was like, I'm not going to be able to see this kid grow up. I'm going to see this kid maybe turn 10. And apparently nobody in her family had lived past 40, and here she was going on 50. But women's need to be wanted is just, I think it's insane. We got all these women who are willing to have kids with a whole bunch of cretins, and then everybody's burdened down by those children, those unwanted children. Is lunacy. Now, mind you, not all children are planned out. Better part of them aren't planned out. I get that. I'm okay with that. Like, my oldest, I knew I was going to have her, straight up. I already knew before she was born that I was going to have a kid, and all that. And my youngest, that was more of a weekend fling. It was July 4th weekend. I was really drunk. So was the mom. It happens. But when I requested a paternity test, I'm the one who pushed for it. Me and my wife pushed for a paternity test because Callie was created before me and my wife got together. But I petitioned for a paternity test. Me and my wife went up there, got the paternity test done. We started setting everything up, child support, all that crap. No problems. And people complain about this all the time, but own up to it. I did quite a few things. But yeah, my youngest wasn't exactly planned out. My plan that weekend wasn't to make a baby. My plan was to have a lot of really cool sexual experiences. Apparently it worked. But yeah, as far as she started declining a while back. The mother did, and she is no longer with us either. She died way back in 2016. And because of her drug use, she tested positive for marijuana, and I believe she tested high for either crack or something else. It's hard to tell anymore. But she tested positive for an illicit drug. Me not having done any illicit drugs in fucking years. They're like, oh, can we drug test you and your wife? Sure, go ahead. We pissed in a cup, got our hair clipped, so we got the follicle test done. Why not? We weren't even caring. It's like, yeah, take it, don't give a fuck. We're boring as shit. And so yeah, they were concentrated on us being just as bad as her mother was. It's like, no, we are, by comparison, we are boring. We're like watching paint dry. Most people consider watching soccer more boring than watching paint dry. We're more boring than that. Imagine watching a clock for 8 hours a day. We're more boring, especially back then, we were more boring than that. We didn't do a whole lot of things. We didn't cause a whole lot of excitement. That's what happens. But I want to get a couple different perspectives, and yes, I have a lot of family members who have been in custody, so we will talk to them later on. But for now, this is going to be the end of this one because this is wanting over the hour mark, and I still got to get some other stuff ready. And I gotta get ready for an interview. And just to let you guys know, as of today, as of yesterday, I am now 41. Happy birthday to me. Yeah. Okay, y'all. Peace out. This is a real goodbye. So goodbye. Yes, this is for the exit.